So a lot of people are talking about Garp right now for some reason with One Piece. I think he's doing something big. I'm not sure what. I think it involves trying to save Kobe from Blackbeard, something like that. Um, I'm very up to date on what's going on with One Piece right now in regards to the Garp saga. Um, But a couple of weeks ago, I watched Strange World and such. Well, I kind of watched Strange World 3 times because twice with my dad, once to just watch it initially, once to prepare myself for the review video that I did, and then once with my mom. Um, Enjoyed it all 3 times. I have a whole review up about it, and I have another video where I talk about kind of like Disney's history with like science fiction and stuff like that and how that went. But this video is going to be about Monkey D. Garp and Jaeger Clade, because I'm sitting there watching Strange World on like the second or even before the second time, sitting there going like, Jaeger reminds me of someone. Beyond like the Indiana Jones setup that clearly he's supposed to be based off of, like Indiana Jones to a degree, and those big butch characters from the serial comics from like the 30s and 40s that were like these adventurers out discovering the world and everything like that, like all these adventures that they would go on, like stuff going into like Tarzan and things like that, making all these discoveries around the world and everything that they would use to like teach kids stuff, and teach kids about the world and everything. And like that's clearly one of the things that it reminds me of, obviously, because that's what they play off of in the movie. But the other character that I'm sitting there going like, who else does Jaeger Clade remind me of? And I'm like, Monkey D. Garp. That is exactly who Jaeger Clade reminds me of. So I was going to go over some of the different similarities that we see, or that I have seen in regards to Jaeger and Garp, and some differences between them, but also some similarities, a lot of similarities between the two of them. So basic information, Garp, Monkey D. Garp is 78 years old. And his family, or at least the family of his that we know of, are Dragon is his son, or at least that's what we're led to believe. I know some people think that Dragon is like Garp's adopted son or his son-in-law or something along those lines, depending on what theory you want to go with. But Dragon is that representation of like Garp's child. And then we have Luffy as Garp's biological grandchild, and then we have Ace as the adopted grandson, and then we kind of have Sabo in there as well, but Garp wasn't around Sabo a huge amount, but he at least met Sabo at some point in time when, before Sabo died, and such. So Garp at least knew about Sabo. Whether or not he's figured out that the Sabo in the Revolutionary Army is the same one that his grandsons grew up with is a little bit left up for debate at this point in time, but we'll see what happens if that's ever revealed. We know that Garp has that as part of his family, and his titles are, of course, like Garp the Fist, Hero of the Marines, that type of a thing, that he is this symbol for the Marines that they use to hold up against, he's the one that took down Gold D. Roger. He's the one that took down, Rocks, even though most of the world doesn't know about that. He is a symbol of, what a Marine is supposed to be to a degree. And then we have Jaeger Clade, who we don't get his exact age, but it's stated that his wife is like 60, so I'm assuming he's at the very least 60, maybe a little bit older. Probably not quite as old as Garp, but at least 60 or so. Because we know that Searcher in the movie is 40 years old, so Jaeger is at least 20 years older than that, from what we can, confirm, or from what we can deduce. And then Jaeger has, his family is Searcher, who is his son. And then his ex-wife is Penelope. We have no idea about Garp's wife, so I'm not putting that one in there. And then we have Meridian, who is Jaeger's daughter-in-law, who is Searcher's wife. And then we have Ethan, who is Jaeger's grandson. In regards to that family tree, Jaeger's titles kind of include, adventurer and hero and captain and stuff like that. that he's, had over the years in regards to all of his different adventures and everything like that. His goal is to, to get past the mountains and see what's on the other side. And for people who haven't seen Strange World and may end up watching this video, there might be some bits of spoiler that get thrown in there, but I'll try to do like a spoiler warning if I get before that, or I'll try to like go around the spoiler as much as possible, to a degree. But since certain things I'm going to mention are definitely going to be spoilers, I'm just going to give you a spoiler warning now in that regard. And, so we see that with Jaeger and such. And one of the things that I do like that we get for both characters, because through various things that we've seen in regards to like flashbacks with Garp, we've seen, him trying to, get Luffy and Ace, and probably to a degree Sabo, when Sabo was there, trying to encourage them to become Marines like him. In regards to how Searcher and Jaeger and Garp are similar in this way is, Jaeger basically just dragged Searcher with him everywhere he went when he was being an adventurer up until Searcher was 15 years old. And then we have like this whole spat that happens between the two of them, and like, certain feelings come to life, and Searcher's like, no, I don't want to have to go and do this adventuring anymore. This, I want to go and do this other thing. I want to learn about this plant and everything. And that's, what he ends up wanting to do. And we kind of, the theory is that in regards to Garp and Dragon, that something along these lines happened. There's the theory that, Garp had made Dragon a Marine, and that Dragon had been a Marine when everything happened with Goldie Roger. And that, Dragon saw enough of what the world government did that's why he left. And then eventually that led to him starting the Revolutionary Army, that type of a thing. And then at somewhere along the lines, he had Luffy, and then he gave Luffy to Garp, and then Garp took Luffy to Syrup Village. That was wrong, took Luffy to Fuchsia Village, and that's where he was raised, and then eventually raised by Makino. Being raised by like Makino and Loop Slap, and then like taken into the forest and the mountains and raised by Dadan, alongside Ace and then Sabo. And for Jaeger and Searcher, it's, he had Searcher, and he took Searcher with him everywhere on his adventures, probably nearly got him killed multiple times. And then, it's like the whole, you'll follow in my footsteps. It's not quite living, forcing your child to live out your own dream. Like, I know what happens a lot. It's not quite that. It's like dragging your child along to be a part of your dream, which comes from a good place in the fact that you want your child there with you, but doesn't quite let your child become what they want to be. I know a lot of Disney movies have been like delving into that a lot lately with like generational trauma and things like that, which I think is a good thing, because then it kind of gets that stuff played out on screen and helps families with talking about it, which I think is a good idea. Is a good way of like helping bring that up and stuff. And Garp kind of tried to do the same thing with like Luffy, Ace, and Sabo, where he wanted to drag them into the Marines and everything and make them become, these, big Marines and everything like that, so they could become strong. Now, admittedly, given, things later on that we find out about who, Luffy's father actually is and everything in regards to Dragon, there's the thought of like, Garp wanted to bring Luffy, Ace, and Sabo into the Marines because, specifically Luffy and Ace, Sabo to a degree, bring them into the Marines because being in the Marines would be a better way of keeping them safe. He could keep a better eye on them than if they were pirates. He probably ended up having them be on his crew anyway, and helping, with training them and everything like that, and bringing them along that way. So, he was... I do see it as Garp wanting to do that as like out of some form of love for his grandsons and wanting to keep them safe, particularly after Luffy ate the Gummy no Mi, depending on how much Garp knows about what the Gummy no Mi actually is. I don't think he knows exactly what it is, but he may know that it's something more than what the world government says it is. But also, Luffy has the Will of D, and it's a better way of protecting Luffy and Ace in that regard. Also, if it ever came out that, if it had come out that, Roger was Ace's father, while Ace was in the Marines, and if Ace had achieved this exceedingly high rank in the Marines already and had, gained some form of trust from the Marines, Garp's probably thinking, well, there may be a lot less likely to try to execute him if they know about this stuff. Same thing. It's like if we bring Luffy and Ace into this, the government will be much less wanting to hurt these two Marines that have proven themselves, even if they do have the will of D. And it can show that, just like with me and with Saul to a degree, that the will of D not necessarily can be tamed, but could be useful. And I know there's like a whole bunch of other like alternate stuff where people are like, oh, what would happen if Luffy was a Marine? If like, you know, if that all happened and everything. And there's a lot of really good artwork that goes along with that. Oda's even drawn some stuff of like Luffy and Ace and Sabo as Marines and stuff like that. So there's that. So I do kind of see initially Garp and Jaeger coming from like a good place in regards to wanting to like keep their family with them and protect them. Dragon kind of looks at it as like, I wasn't able to protect or Garp's like, I wasn't able to protect Dragon in that regard, but I can at least try to do what I can to help protect Luffy. The other thing is that even later on, even once Luffy is a pirate and everything, Garp is still somewhat encouraging of that. And we see that with Jaeger and with Ethan, because later on when Jaeger meets Ethan, and they're like having a, you know, grandfather-grandson bonding moment, Jaeger's like, hey, you want to try out my flamethrower? And generally the answer to this is most likely yes, depending on who you are. And Ethan's like, sure. And they try out the flamethrower. And they're just having like a bonding moment and everything, which is very nice. And they also have this moment where Jaeger's like, so you got any sweethearts back home? And Ethan's like, yeah, there's this guy, his name is Diazio, he's really cool and everything. And Jaeger's just like 100% behind it instantly, giving horrible dating advice, and the fact that he's like, you should try to get him into a life or death situation where you save his life. And then he'll be yours. And I'm just like, that is not a healthy way to start a relationship. And Ethan says the same thing, which I am very happy about. In that regard. So we see a lot of that in regards to, you know, Garp and Jaeger have some of those similarities. But one thing I did want to bring up here in regards to Jaeger is they actually have a theme song for the Clades in the movie. It's a funny theme song. It's like, they're the Clades. Never, you know, Jaeger Clade never heard the meaning of the word afraid. Hard as nails, blazing trails, staring danger in the eyes. He's the manliest of guys, Jaeger Clade. And then it's Searcher Clade, joining Dad on every new escapade. Iron-willed, smaller build. He's the apple from the tree with a thing for botany. Searcher Clade. It's like over rugged mountains sprawling. Yeah, over rugged mountains sprawling on raging waters falling in cascades. They're the Clades. On their daring escapades. They're the Clades. And it's just like this adorable thing that they do that I love, that little opening that they have to the movie where they show Ethan or Jaeger and Searcher and stuff like that. And at one point Jaeger just like literally picks up a piranha and uses it as like a razor to like shave his beard, which is just funny in of itself. And I'm like, you know, that's something Garp would probably try and succeed at. Because the other thing is that both Jaeger and Garp are these very muscular older men. Because we see Jaeger just like jumping all over the place and not really having any issue with, you know, climbing and flips and everything like that we see him do all over the place. And then like Garp does a whole bunch of the same stuff. Like he throws cannonballs at the Straw Hats and like whips a giant, like, I don't know, ball and chain at them. And, you know, we see him messing, you know, doing, you know, taking good hits against, you know, a bunch of the different, you know, Whitebeard commanders during the war and everything. We know that he takes the hit from Luffy on purpose so Luffy can try to get to Ace. But we see that a lot with them. And like, you know, Jaeger, it's just like him, like, you know, his answer to pretty much anything that he doesn't know what it is flamethrower. Because we see him just flamethrower so much stuff when they're in like the Strange World area that it's just like, huh, you know, you probably caused a lot of damage to this place, but it just kind of heals. So I guess it's not as bad as we think, but you're still causing a lot of damage in that regard in the 25-ish years or so that you've been down here. So there's a lot of that we see. But the other things that we also see in regards to Jaeger and Garp, or at least that I've noticed, is that they do both also tend to be kind of more emotionally constipated, would be a good way of putting it. Because at various points in time throughout the movie, or throughout One Piece that we've seen with Garp, and clearly we've technically gotten a lot more like character development, screen time with Garp than we have with Jaeger, because Jaeger just has the one movie, but Garp has like so many episodes of One Piece and so many chapters of One Piece and stuff like that, and even bits that were like thrown into some of the movies that give us some additional backstory for Garp every now and then. So we get a lot more of that with Garp, and I'm sure that if you added up all of like the screen time we've had with Garp compared to like all the screen time you got with Jaeger, you got a lot more Garp screen time in that regard. But admittedly, One Piece is a story that has lasted 25 years, working, going on further and further, and we get additional information about them, and there's a lot more time to like digest these characters. Whereas with, a movie, it's just like you get all this information thrown at you at once in regards to this stuff. It's just like, these are the characters, this is what they do. Jaeger's tough, Searcher likes plants, and then Ethan likes exploring but not wanting to destroy everything. We get all of that stuff. Meridian likes to fly. Here's Callisto. She's awesome too. They also have a dog with 3 legs. So you get a lot of that. But yeah, they're all kind of like both characters are somewhat emotionally constipated to a degree, because Garp, I would say, is somewhat emotionally constipated in the fact that like he doesn't really talk that much about, his grandson and his grandsons and things like that, which initially, I mean, like, I'm sure he talked about them a lot with Sengoku when he was, helping raise Luffy and Ace and stuff like that, and going and seeing them as often as he could and stuff like that, and then going back and like talking to Sengoku and like some of the other, vice admirals and stuff like that, and like Kuzan and stuff like that, talking to him about them. I'm sure Sengoku, Garp, and Tsuru sat around at various points in time, and, Sengoku shared stories about Corazon, and maybe there's a theory that, like, Tsuru has, like, a connection to Drake, if there's, like, a sword connection there, has, like, that connection, that I'm like, I could go with that, but, like, her being there and everything, I would be interested in that, but different video. Different idea. But, just like them talking about like raising their kids, whereas Jaeger has been on his own for the last 25 years. And, Garp at least has his friends around him. He has some other Marines around him that he trusts. And yes, while he does end up, when everything happens with Ace, in all honesty, Garp for the last 2 years, Garp has been beating himself up about what happened with Ace. The fact that he didn't, it's like he chose the world government, the Marines, over his own grandson that he has helped raise, and that he didn't try to do more to try to help get Ace out of there and save him and everything like that, when like even before Luffy showed up, Garp didn't do anything. And I think that is one of the reasons why he's so fired up to go and try to save Kobe from Blackbeard, is because, and I know a lot of people, I know there's like a thing on Facebook that's like someone drew something of like Garp showing up and like beating the crap out of Blackbeard, which I am all for, by the way. I am all for that. That is perfectly fine in my opinion. That's like Garp showing up and like beating the crap out of Blackbeard, and like, it's like, I'm not letting you take someone else that's precious to me and everything like that, because Blackbeard is literally one of the reasons why Ace died, because he's the one that captured Ace. Akainu is technically the exact reason why Ace died, but Garp can't exactly go after Akainu at this point in time, because he's the fleet admiral. That'll hopefully happen later. You'll get his comeuppance later, probably from like a combination of Luffy and Sabo, hopefully. Or his own hubris, which would just be so much better in regards to how Akainu would end up. But, there's so much stuff going on of like, oh, Garp's gonna go and beat the crap out of Blackbeard, and it's like, because he failed Ace, he failed trying to protect Ace, and he had to watch his own grandson die in his other grandson's arms and everything like that, and because he had somewhat refused to do anything because of everything that happened there, Garp has spent the last 2 years with that guilt, and then now he has one of his other students, one of these other people that he has helped trained up in regards to Kobe and Helmeppo, along with whoever many others. Now he wants to go. He's like, no, I already failed one of my, pupils, one of the children given to me in my charge, as a charge, as a ward to a degree, I'm not going to do that again. And that's why he's going off and he's getting Helmeppo and Hibari, and they're gonna, and however many of the Marines he can scrounge up and everything to go and deal with Blackbeard to try to save Kobe. Regardless of Sword being involved, Garp would do that, I think. If Garp's not part of Sword, he's still going to go and do this. If he is part of Sword, he's still going to go and do this. Because he helped train up Kobe, and he saw Kobe and how even Kobe and Luffy are very similar in certain regards of, like, wanting to achieve these very high, far-flung dreams and such, and, like, how hard they work and such. And Garp wants to protect Kobe in this regard. He wants to save him. And we see that, and then when we go into Strange World, when it comes to, Jaeger and his relationship with Searcher, I mean, I don't know if Garp and Dragon are ever going to be able to fix whatever type of a relationship they have, unless this is one very long ploy of, I'm going to, Dad, I'm going to go start a revolutionary army. Here's an idea for what you can do in the Marines, and then later on, we'll see how these two groups can work together if, Garp is part of Sword or whatever. I did a video several months ago or sometime last year where I talked about, there's the possible connections between, like, Sword and the Revolutionary Army, that, like, if Garp is the one in charge of Sword, or at least a very high-ranking member of it, that he would be able to, some form of communication with Dragon where they can try to, like, coordinate things. I talked about that already in a different video, but don't know exactly, if Garp and Dragon are ever going to be able to fully fix their relationship. But Garp at least may want to try to do something to help fix whatever relationship remains between him and Luffy, and possibly going and saving Kobe, because Kobe is, Luffy's friend, would be a way of helping with that, would be a way of, like, showing Luffy that I have learned from my mistakes in regards to what happened with Ace, 2 years ago, and I'm going to try to do my best not to let that happen again. Not to let someone else who's innocent die in that regard. And I think Garp's kind of getting fed up with that anyway. Particularly if he knows about what happened with the Lucia Kingdom. But, with Jaeger, it's, he was on his own for the last 25 years, only had himself to depend on in this very strange world with all these strange animals, and he has to learn what can hurt him and what can't hurt him, what he can eat, what he can use as supplies, different things like that. And he does a very good job with it, in regards to being able to, survive and everything like that. And he has all the survival skills and everything. But we also see that, him just being on his own for a long time hasn't been the best in regards to his own sanity, because he sees his own son again. He sees Searcher all grown up, and he thinks that, oh, you're just an oddly shaped rock that I think is talking to me. And that's not the case. But, Searcher's, like, pointing that out to him. Like, I'm not an oddly shaped rock. You gave me a machete for my birthday. I was 2. That was a bad idea. Which kind of just falls into the whole Garp sending Luffy and Sabo and Ace and dropping them into the woods and making them train to get out. And, like, all that other stuff. But Jaeger, Jaeger and Searcher, by the end of the movie, there's a lot of stuff that happens between them and Ethan, and there's various moments that, yes, in the movie are harped on a little bit too much about, like, the way that Jaeger treats Searcher and Searcher treats Ethan, and, like, all these other variations of stuff. In regards to those different parenting dynamics and stuff like that, of, like, you take the kid with you, or you leave them home where they're safe, or, that type of stuff. And, trying to force your kid down your own path. Again, generational trauma, things that Disney and other shows are trying to deal with a lot at this point in time, and everything to try to bring that more into the zeitgeist, which I approve of. But one of the other things that we see with Jaeger and Searcher, and this is definitely getting into a huge amount of spoiler territory here, is where, Searcher and Jaeger end up having this big blowout argument, and Searcher, Jaeger goes off on his own because he's finally they found a way past the mountains, and he's gonna go that way and figure out what's going on and finally see it, something that he's been working towards his entire life. And Jaeger goes off to do that, and, like, Searcher and Ethan and the rest of the group are trying to help save, like, this energy source / just giant creature, and that they actually live on, and a whole amount of spoilers there. And trying to fix all of that that's going on. And Jaeger goes off on his own, and he has a moment where he realizes that all I've done my entire life is try to find this way past these mountains, past, whatever is out there, when I should have been trying to spend all of this time. I literally spent 25 years on my own after I had an argument with my son about plants because I couldn't accept the fact that he wanted to learn about these plants, and that maybe the destiny of our family, maybe my legacy is not what's beyond these mountains, but what is my son? What he can do for the world and what I can do to help him. And we see that, and Jaeger goes back and he ends up helping them in regards to like the big climax of the movie. And then at the end of the movie, we have, all three generations have, they've repaired their relationships, all the different, father, son, family, bonds and grandparent bonds and everything are much stronger than they were, and fixed and everything. Well, not 100% fixed, because nothing is ever 100% fixed, but so much better, and down the line where they can work on fixing things more because, communication has been opened up. And so we see that. And, with all of that, Searcher and Jaeger have the conversation, and Jaeger's like, my real legacy wasn't what was beyond the mountains. It was you. It was everything that you have done, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to help with it enough. I'm sorry I wasn't there to support you. I'm sorry I didn't support you as much as I should have. And we get that throughout the course of the end of the movie. And, things are going much better and everything. In regards to, how the that family unit is going. And, it's, I would say that Jaeger maybe had a little bit of an easier time having to deal with that, because like neither his son nor his grandson died during this whole escapade, whereas with Garp it took, to a degree, losing Ace for him to start realizing certain things that are just like, maybe you have put too much into trying to do things the way that the world government wants you to do, the way that the Marines want you to do, the way that the Gorosei want you to do. Highly doubt Garp knows about Im-sama, but if he did that, I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think he does. Unless Sengoku knew and Sengoku told Garp, which is also a possibility. But, it's also, the Marines would not let Garp 100% retire. He's like a trainer now at this point in time, because it's just like, oh, we can't let the hero of the Marines like retire and leave us. That's not good PR. Because, with everything going on with the pirates and everything, if, because Garp's like this giant recruitment tool and everything like that that they can use to try to get more people to sign up for the Marines. But, there's a lot that happens with that. And if, as I said, I think one of the reasons that Garp is trying to go to save Kobe is because he already lost Ace. And he doesn't want to lose someone else that means that's important to him. And no, Kobe and Homepa are not his grandsons or his, adopted grandson or anything like that. They're not his family, but they are two, used to people that remind him probably quite a bit, to a degree, of Luffy and Ace and Sabo, to a degree, that he doesn't want to see either of them dying again. He doesn't want to see either of them die because he already lost Ace. And he almost lost Luffy, and there's still the potential chance he could end up losing Luffy. And I do think that down the line, depending on what happens with him trying to save, Kobe from Blackbeard and everything like that, and however that goes, and, stuff with, like, the Straw Hats or whatever, that will definitely, if Luffy finds out that Blackbeard kills Garp, if that's what ends up happening, honestly, I do think Garp would probably be, quite a good match against Blackbeard in regards to being able to take him down. But if it does end up being that, like, they find out that, oh, Blackbeard kills, Garp, that's just going to make Luffy want to go and kill Blackbeard even more. Go and want to beat the heck out of him even more. Which is saying something, because Luffy already wants to do that. But that would also just be another motivator for Luffy. And I do think, if Garp is in charge of Sword or part of Sword, depending on how that goes, then that is, to a degree, somewhat being, like, supportive of Luffy, because it's just like, okay, let's see what we can do with this, and, see how much more, can be done to help with things, to help try to get the world to a better place, to get rid of this corrupt part of the world government and everything. Because we know that Garp despises the Gorosei and the Celestial Dragons. We know that. He despises them with a passion for various reasons. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to go over with, like, why those characters are very similar in my opinion. And, you know, I'm not saying that, like, oh, like, Oda's gonna watch Strange World, although I think there's some parts of Strange World that Oda would actually like a lot, because it's a lot of fun stuff that happens in it. But, you know, if that did happen, I wonder if Oda would just be like, wait a second, Jaeger reminds me of someone. Goes home, draws Garp. Dang it, that's who he reminds me of. That'd be funny. But yeah, that's what I got. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Yes, this was me somewhat rambling, but I wanted to go over this and stuff. And also I think either, depending when this goes up, either the end of this week there'll be a new One Piece chapter, or next week there'll be a new One Piece chapter, depending on what's going on with the hiatus. So that's what I have. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.